I just decided to be a passenger in my life and put God as a driver. And the moment that I decided to do that, I have been blessed beyond compare.
Imagine having direct access to someone who's navigated life's toughest terrains and come out stronger. Someone who's been there, done that, and can guide you with empathy, experience, and honesty. This isn't just advice. It's a lifeline, a strategy session, a chance to learn from my journey so you can accelerate yours. Without the ability to be self-aware and introspective, the ability for you to get to where you want to go, nearly impossible.
Hey everybody, David Guttman here. Welcome back to the David Guttman podcast. I have a really special guest here today, Via Ramirez. We're going to talk about her journey. And Via, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, David. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Via Ramirez, for whoever doesn't know me. And yeah, thanks for having me here.
Well, so I wanted to kind of start with, we met through some trading mutual acquaintances, and I would just, being a woman, it's a little bit less common to be in the trading space. So just love to kind of know how you started your journey and how was that what you chose that you wanted to get good at?
Yeah, definitely. So I was into real estate at the moment. This was about 4.5 years ago, and I loved real estate. It was something that I enjoyed. However, at that moment, I was traveling a lot, and it got to a point where I was traveling so often that, I would have to fly back to show houses for contracts and so forth. And then I thought at the moment of the big picture, is this something that I really want to continue diving deep into for the rest of my life, because I love to travel so much. So then I was like, you know what, let me just look into other streams of income that could potentially spark my interest. And trading, what had just became like popular in the day, this was when COVID came around. So, and I took a class, and it was like when you were meant to find something your whole life, that's how I felt when I went into trading. And I've never looked back ever since.
So now, what kind of student were you? Middle school, high school? Were you a good student, bad student? What was your favorite subject? Like, were you always good with numbers? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
So, funny story. I was the worst student in terms of, I honestly, I barely graduated high school, like a 2.0 GPA. The way that I saw school was that if it didn't interest me, I just didn't really care for it. And so school at the moment just didn't interest me. So I would show up because I had to, but I was not mentally there at all. So for me, it was just like, let me get a diploma and get out of here. And that's just was my mentality at the moment.
When you were growing up, did you have any idea what you wanted to do when you were older? From a career standpoint, were your parents influential in that regard, or did you just not really give much thought to it?
Yes, so I did give a lot of thought to it. My dad owns his own business in construction, and my mom's been a realtor for over 25 years. My uncles also own their own companies. One is in HVAC and another is in tile. And so I grew around business owners, and I saw the financial freedom that, let's say we were having a barbecue, they didn't have to call for permission. It was more like, we're having a family day. Let me just make sure my employees are okay and my company is good, and we'll have a family day. And I had always seen that growing up. So that was always something I wanted for my future self. Now, I didn't know what I wanted to do. In all honesty, I didn't know the details, but I always knew that I was gonna start something and work for myself. I just didn't know. I didn't know what the journey there would be at that moment, but I always knew I was gonna be an entrepreneur in some type of way.
And so how did you think about that? Because I always say I have a daughter just a couple of years younger than you, and I practically begged her not to go to college because again, she did like every other kid, get a degree in psychology and minor in business. It's not really worth much. It's ridiculously expensive. And ultimately, she didn't really learn anything of any real value, right? So yeah, she learned a little bit on how to be an adult, but that was pretty much it. How did you think about kind of how you were going to figure that out, how you were going to figure out what kind of entrepreneur you wanted to be?
I guess I just didn't think of that part of it at the moment. I just remember in high school, when you go to like those career fairs, people would ask me, "Well, what college are you going to? What are you going? What university?" and so forth. And my answer would always be none. I'm gonna be an entrepreneur. And I remember people laughing at me because at that moment, everybody is so stuck in the mindset of go to school, get a degree, make a lot of money. And that's the only way. If you don't go to college, if nothing of that sort, it's going to be very hard to make it in the so-called real world, right? So I just remember getting laughed at, but I knew that my family, again, they had come from being entrepreneurs and they were happy. And that was the life that I grew up seeing. And so I knew that that was a path that I wanted to take.
It's a lot of peer pressure though. Like I remember, again, where I was going before was, there just weren't a lot of paths to entrepreneurship or just careers in general. It was, you kind of, people did the normal thing. You maybe went into the military or you were a tradesman, or you went to college. Nowadays it's very different, but everyone else is doing something different than you are. Did you always march to the beat of your own drummer? Like, where did that come from? Were you going to kind of choose your own path instead of necessarily following what everyone else was doing?
I guess it's just something you're born with. And I know that sounds a little like cliche, but I really do believe that some people are born with knowing they're going to be different. And there's one of my favorite quotes is, to live an exceptional life, you need to be of an exception. So I used to always have that mentality. And all honestly, where it came from, I don't know. I just remember ever since I was a little girl, I was very independent and I always wanted to be better in terms of I was like, let's say we would run a race. I always made sure that I was like the fastest one there. That was just a mentality that I always had. So I grew up telling myself that I was going to be different and do something different. I really just don't know where that came from.
And where would you say your kind of your self-confidence, your self-esteem comes from? Because it strikes me that in order to be able to do that, you got to be at least somewhat comfortable in your own skin, or you're not going to be able to take a different path than everyone else. So did that come from your folks? Or where did that come from?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I would say through experience more so, because I used to lack a lot of self-confidence, in all honesty. But as you go through things in life, you see the potential that you have, and you see that every time you fall, you get up 5 times better. And I think just the obstacles that I've gone throughout my life that had led me to where I am now, I've seen how I really can do whatever it is that I want to do.
So I'm curious if I'm guessing maybe you played sports in high school or something. You see, we're talking about running. Did you play sports at all, or did you have a coach that you really admired, or?
No, I wish I played sports. I actually was really into soccer. And at the moment, I probably started playing soccer my sophomore year of high school. And I had always wanted to play soccer ever since I was a little girl, but my father never let me. And I remember the first day of soccer practice, I literally gave it my all. And there was people that were playing soccer since could probably walk. And at the moment, I wanted to become pro. And I remember, again, people would just laugh at me. They're like, these girls have been playing since they were little, and this is your first year. But I killed it. And I think that also started from me knowing my ability and potential. Like, I would see these girls that started when they were kids, and I was competing with girls that have played since they were 4, and it was my first year, and I was competing with them. So that also, I think, boosted me at the moment and was like, wow, like if I really put my thought into something and put the work, I can do anything. It doesn't matter on that they've been doing it longer.
And one of the things I've figured out as I got older was I can trace all of my best qualities back to hardships that I've had to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
I can't trace any of my good qualities to like things that went right. So how has that been for you? And maybe what were some of the hardships you had to overcome and what did they teach you?
So I'm one of those people that's very hard on myself in terms of I don't know I don't think about my hardships too often just because the way I see it is, there's somebody else that I'm blessed, in other words, and I don't like to think of my hardships. But in terms of, I mean, I remember like when starting from high school, I wanted to go to college and to see, what path I wanted to take. And my parents couldn't afford it. So it was like, sorry, you have to get a job. You can't go. And so I remember working multiple jobs at the time. At one point, I even worked 3 jobs to try to help my family out. So they never had to pay for anything, so that I would always pay for my own things. And I would say I don't call that a hardship because, again, I feel like I was so blessed at the time, but I think that really helped mold me to work hard and to see that whatever I put my mind to, I reap the benefits of it.
It does. So, all right. So you start out in real estate, then you kind of make a pivot into trading. Let's talk a little bit about that. What it is about trading, because not only are you a trader, but now you're coaching and mentoring other traders. So maybe talk a little bit about that, because one of the things I think that's really interesting in I basically, mentored and coached people for a while. And what I find is I learn so much by coaching other people because I can't explain it well if I don't understand it at a deep level. Because you can understand something well enough to do it reasonably well,
Correct.
but to break it down and explain it to someone, especially someone who's new, you have to really understand it. So to me, talk about that process a little bit.
So the process that I go through with my students,
Well, I would say,
or
kind of the journey from being a trader yourself to deciding, you know what, I think I might be able to help others, and kind of understanding, and maybe I think that's relatively new, like maybe a few months or so that you've been mentoring others.
yes.
Kind of how that's shifted things for you in your own trading, and so forth.
I understand. Okay. So, yes. So I got a mentor 4.5 years ago, and she taught me the basics of, the fundamentals of trading. But throughout the years, I really realized that you can teach somebody the basics, you can teach somebody everything, but it's all back to psychology. And I think living through it firsthand made me realize that I want to help others and implement the psychology as a big factor in teaching others. Because again, I've been trading for 4.5 years, but in all honesty, I didn't take it serious until 2 years ago. And I didn't become full time until about 6 months ago. And it's all mindset. And I saw what shifting my mindset brought into my trading. It changed it tremendously. I mean, again, I started 4.5 years ago. I was working 2 jobs. And what I would do is I would wake up before work, and I would even trade during work. And I would, in all honesty, I mean, that's like saying I was half-assing it, And I reached a point in my life where I told myself, if things don't change, things won't change. And I remember one day I was sitting in my room and I just broke down because I was overwhelmed by, I was working so much and trading was my passion. And I noticed that me half assing what I was giving to trading, it was affecting my trading, because if you don't give it 100%, it's just gonna, you're only giving it half of yourself. So I remember telling myself, okay, things have to change, or else, again, things are not going to change. And it was all a shift of a mindset. So that day, I called all of my jobs. I quit, and I put in my notice for my lease for my apartment. I called my mom and I told her, I'm starting from all over again. I'm starting from scratch. I'm starting from the bottom. And I reset everything. And I dedicated 6 months after that. No friends, no going out. I was hitting the gym. I was eating really good. I would wake up trading. I would go to sleep thinking about trading. I was literally breathing, sleeping, eating, trading. And the moment that I shifted my mentality to do that and to be 100% into something, it changed my whole world. And so that's why now I try to implement psychology as one of the most important things because, again, you can teach somebody the fundamentals, but if their mentality is not there, they're just not going to get it the same.
Was there a trigger that caused you to basically, that's a pretty drastic change, quitting all your jobs, moving, all that kind of stuff. Was there a trigger that caused that or?
Yeah, exhaustion. That really was what it was. I mean, again, I was working 3 jobs at the time. I used to waitress and bartend, and that takes a toll on your body. I was doing that for 7 years. Imagine waking up, working 16 hours a day on your feet, running around. I mean, eventually that caught up to you. And there was a moment where I almost couldn't walk in terms of I didn't even have time to go to a chiropractor because of I would work, come home, sleep for a couple hours and go to work again. And then I thought to myself, I asked myself this question every day. If I were to die tomorrow, would I be happy with the life that I lived? And when that answer was no, I knew something had to change. And I told myself, what's the worst that can happen? I start all over again. And that's what I did. And so that helped me grow tremendously because now I always see it in that perspective. What's the worst that can happen? I go back to starting from the ground. I already did it. So nothing worse can happen from there.
Do you have like an inner circle, a group of, confidants or, that when you're thinking about decisions like this, or is it just, are you like your own island?
I'm my own island. I definitely am a lone wolf, not by choice. I just feel that I haven't quite found the correct group of people that can help me grow up to this moment in my life. But for example, I don't watch TV. I don't really listen to music. I wake up, I listen to podcasts. I read every moment that I get. When I watch Netflix or documentaries on like the brain and that informational things.
Right.
So I think that plays a huge role. I'm always stimulating my brain. And so whenever I feel, lonely or a little sad, I honestly just go on YouTube. I look up motivational videos. I look at speeches. I read books, and it helps because I know that I'm not the only one that's been there. And all of these people that you read or I read about in their books, through YouTube videos, they're successful people and they've all been through it and they talk about it. So I know that that will help me get through it as well.
So you're clearly very driven. What are you driving towards? Do you have a set of goals in mind? Like, what is it that drives you? What's your why?
I would say, so we're talking about Kobe Bryant, right? I mean, I think it's about 4 or 5 years that he passed away now, and he's still remembered as one of the greatest basketball players of all time, of course, right? So I think my ultimate goal in just living on earth is that when I die, I will still be remembered. And I really hope that it's in a positive way. That's just the big goal that I see myself. If I'm on this earth, it's for a reason and it's to help others. And I'm hoping that once I'm gone, I'll still be remembered in a positive, influential way.
Well, so let's maybe let's not go all the way to the grave. But if you think like 3 years out, 5 years out, maybe 10 years at the most, if you could snap your fingers and have it turn out exactly how you'd like, what would that look like?
I would say, and I want to create a foundation for school systems. And I would say to implement more entrepreneurial and financial literacy courses in school systems. Because again, when I was in high school, you go to the career fair. What's in the career fairs? You want to be a lawyer, you want to be a doctor, you want to be an architect, right? There was never a booth for building your own business. And it can be whatever you want it to be. You can be a barber and you can open up your own shop. You can, again, be a realtor. and you can start your own brokerage. There's so many paths that are so accessible nowadays that the school system, in my opinion, doesn't really shed the light into those paths. And I would like to create a foundation for, those booths to be at the career fair, and for a kid to come up to me and say, I want to be an entrepreneur. Okay, let's build a plan. Do you want to build, again, a barber shop, if that's something you like? Do you want to learn how to build headquarters, for example? But let's get there, because there's so many steps in getting to that goal. Credit, loans, all of that stuff that the school systems don't teach you. I would like to build that bridge eventually.
Yeah, our education system is horrible.
Yeah.
We don't teach anything. It's like, when's the last time you used trigonometry? Like, never. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think about all the stuff I learned, and I'm just like, what a complete waste. And there's so many useful things, like how to make a budget. You don't learn that.
Correct.
I mean,
Yes.
it's kind of amazing when you think about it. Well, so tell me a little bit about how you think about mentorship. You're coaching and mentoring other people. Do you think about it much for yourself? Because, one of the things that I think is interesting is I think people, ironically, ironic's the wrong word, but they don't seek out mentors. And I'm curious if that's something you ever even thought about, or if that even crosses your mind.
Oh, yes. Seeking a mentor is extremely important. And I'm always seeking mentors. I've had about 4 up until my journey. And at the moment, I'm even looking for another mentor, because everybody can bring something of value. Again, for example, somebody that's more successful than you, I want to pick their brain. I want to see how they got there. And I think it's very important to have a mentor, because they've been where you are. Think about that. So whenever you're feeling stuck, especially in trading, everybody has different techniques. Everybody has different strategies. And it's like, there's also another saying that says you can either be right or you can be rich. And so that's assuming that what you know is always right, and that's not the case. So there's always ways to improve. There's always ways to grow. And I think seeking a mentor is one of the most important things.
And so, I'm curious how you think about that, because my experience, I've had a couple of, I guess what I would call professional mentors, but oftentimes the people that were very professionally successful were train wrecks personally, terrible husbands or wives, or terrible parents, or their physical health, their mental health wasn't, somewhere between not great to horrible.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about mentorship, are you looking for that person who's more well-rounded, or are you looking for that person that's just, hey, they're a great trader, I want to be a great trader, that's what I care about?
I would say more well-rounded. And for me personally, not to go into this detail, but I'm a firm believer in faith. And so if I see a mentor that's successful, and also how they present themselves, and if they also believe in God, that for me is an important thing. So that's just me personally, again, a well-rounded person overall.
So where does your faith come from? It's funny, and I say that as someone who's very spiritual, but I probably would label myself as more agnostic. And I actually am envious, very envious, quite frankly, of people that have faith. It's something I've sought for a while, but have been unable to get my hands around. I'm curious how you think about faith.
Good thing you bring up. I honestly was not a believer for a very long time. I resented God because of the things that I had been through in my childhood. But it's crazy, because I used to see myself as a driver in my life, right? And you go through a lot of things, and I used to see God at the moment when I was going through things in prayer, and here for a purpose. And once you start to let God figure out your purpose and just start to be a passenger, you start to see life a little more differently.
Interesting. And what was the trigger, for lack of a better word, that caused you to find your faith, especially having come from a place where maybe you resented it more? Was there some of it, like what caused you to be like, to decide, hey, I want to go from being a driver to a passenger? That's an interesting analogy I had never heard before.
Yeah. So it all happened to that day that I had decided to uproot my life. When I did that, I prayed and I told God that if this all works out, that to please help me. And I don't know if this is going to be for the best or if this is going to be for the worst, but I'm trusting that whatever happens, it's going to be because it happens for a reason. And I am not lying to you. Like literally days after all that happened, I received a call from a really important connection. And that connection brought me out to Miami. And this was in January. When I came to Miami in January, we had dinner and he was a firm believer in God. And he had told me his story about how he almost died and he prayed and he told God that if he is here for a purpose to let him live and he will change his life around. And long story short, it transformed his life. And now he does everything through God's word. And it's just interesting because me over here, I prayed and said that if this was meant to be to help me, and if it wasn't, then, it wasn't meant to be, but at least I tried. And days after I meet this person that brings me to Miami, which now I live here, and that person was huge in their faith. And to this day, that person and me are still friends. And it's because of all of that I came to Miami, and now I'm in Miami and I've met amazing people. I'm super happy. I love it here. It's just, if that's not a proof of God, I don't know what is.
Right. Well, I'm going to have to learn. I have to learn this myself, my own way. Although I have a good friend now who's kind of helping me on that journey. So you were talking before about being an entrepreneur, wanting to help other people be entrepreneurs. Being an entrepreneur, I think people don't understand it. They think of it, I don't have a boss, and that's true in a certain respect. But being an entrepreneur, it does require you to have a risk tolerance that's not necessarily normal. So,
Really?
yeah. So how do you think about that? Or maybe you have friends and they're like, I want to do what you're doing. Like, how do you, you seem like the kind of person that would be encouraging to most anybody, but how do you help someone maybe think that through? Because, it isn't for everybody. How do you think about that? And maybe how do you help others on that journey?
Yeah, definitely. So I always like to say that success is based on perception. So I like to ask people, are you happy? And then for example, a friend will be like, well, no, I hate my job. Okay, then change that. And that doesn't necessarily mean, like you're saying, take all these risks and do the crazy like what I did. I'm not saying that. But the moment you decide to change something, that's when it's going to change. And being stuck in something, for example, again, that friend that's saying that they hate their job, being stuck in that, I mean, your life's always going to be the same. So again, I definitely do think you do have to be more risk adverse than most people. But again, based on the success that you're looking for example, for me, I'm happy at the moment right now. But let's say somebody else is like, oh no, that's not the life that I want. That's where success is based on perception. So I would tell my friends, what do you want? And if you just want more flexibility in your job, okay, then what can we do to change that? That doesn't mean, quitting your job and starting from scratch. It's just changing little things to change your life, basically.
You talked about happiness. If you could choose between being happy or being content, which would you pick?
I don't like the word content.
No?
No, because that makes me think about settling. And I've never liked to settle. So I would definitely pick happiness.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I think about it a little differently, but for me, I think about happiness. coming more externally and contentment more coming internally.
Okay.
But I do understand that.
Yeah.
I do understand the lens you're looking at it through. I could see that too, which is, yeah, it's kind of like the word selfish. I think people misunderstand the word selfish. I might volunteer at a soup kitchen because it makes me feel good that I'm helping others, that how fortunate I am. I would argue that's a selfish act.
Correct.
But people, like, to me, there's a big difference between being selfish and being self-involved. Like thinking the world revolves around you.
Yeah.
That's a different
Well,
thing.
then I guess happiness could be both. It could be being content as well, right?
Maybe.
Depending on how you look at it.
Yeah,
I
no,
would
it's
say.
words can mean different things. Well, so as you're looking forward, you only moved here a month or so ago, or a few weeks ago?
3. It's about to be 3 months.
3 months
Yeah.
ago. So it sounds like you're loving Miami, right? I've only been here for like a year and a half, so I love it too.
Yeah.
It's tired of freezing my ass off in Chicago. So what's next for you? In terms of, I know you're building up your business, but what are you really excited and focused on at the moment?
Yeah, so right now I'm focusing on my mentorships. I really do want to help as many people as I can right now. I really get joy from helping others, and you really do change people's lives. There's people that reach out to you because they feel stuck or they feel like there's no way out. Some people are looking for extra income, and I really love helping people. Progress through trading. So right now that's what I'm focusing on, but as well as I am currently writing a book, and details are to come as to what the whole timeline for that is, but definitely just being influential to as many people as I can and portraying the journey. I think it's not common that a lot of people portray the journey as extremely transparent in a sense where it's hard. It's very, very hard to do anything in life that requires risk and requires you to get outside of your comfort zone. But it's going to pay off so much. And there's a saying that I also like to say is temporary sacrifices for a long-term goal. So I like to think of that right now. I'm working all the time. I don't do much for pleasure, but I see it as a bigger picture because, again, I want to help as many people as I can. So that's what I'm working towards at the moment.
So do you take, any time for yourself? Look, I think back to when I was in my mid to late 20s. I also didn't take much time. But if I could go back in time, I might have tweaked that a little bit. Do you find a little bit of time for yourself? Sounds like you at least hit the gym. So maybe that's your time. I know what do you do for yourself?
Yeah, so hitting the gym, running. I love to run. I'll put my headphones in, listen to a podcast, and I'll run about 6 miles, and that's my outlet. But I also love to travel. So for me, I would let's say I'm working, and then, okay, it's the end of the month. I think it's time for a little vacation. That for me is my outlet, just going traveling, seeing new places.
What's the coolest place you visited?
Oh, that's tough. I would say Switzerland.
Oh,
I love Switzerland. It's honestly, you can't believe that it's Earth. It's just breathtaking. So I have yet to find a place that compares to Switzerland.
what's the place you went to you liked the least?
Oh my goodness. Spain.
Really?
I'm not a fan of Spain just because they don't believe in spicy food. So
Okay.
every time I was there, I would ask for jalapenos or spicy salsa, and they would look at me like, we don't have that here. So I think that's the only reason why the food was a little different in my opinion.
So since you're a traveler, what's at the top of your bucket list in terms of places you're dying to go to?
South Africa.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, South Africa. So I've been twice.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. I've got a couple I got a couple recommendations.
Yeah, I would definitely say that's next.
Well, so if you could go back to high school, or even actually back to high school, and then maybe say back 3 years ago, those two timelines, and you could give yourself a piece of advice, what piece of advice would you have given yourself in high school? What piece of advice would you have given yourself 2 or 3 years ago?
Trust the journey. Yeah, definitely. I would just say that, and It'll eventually pay off.
Tell me what that means to you, trust the journey.
Life will throw so many punches at you, and you have to trust that the top of the mountain is going to be worth it. And at the moment, all of those punches that you're getting thrown at might feel like the end of the world. But if you just trust the journey and trust that you'll get there, because again, it could take you 5 years to get to where you want to be, correct? It could take you 10 years. It could take you 15 years. You don't know. And you saying that you need it now is also, how do I put it? It's, again, not trusting the journey. You have to know that you'll get there on your own terms.
So, Via, thank you so much for your time. But how do people find you?
Yeah, definitely. So my Instagram is official Via Ramirez. And I would say there as well. LinkedIn, definitely Via Ramirez as well. And yeah, all of my Linktree URLs are through my Instagram. So you can look at my website, my Discord, and you can even book a one-on-one call with me. And we could even go over your trading journey, and I could see how I can help you in any way.
Well, hey, anyone who's looking for a trading mentor, Via Ramirez, hit her up online. And thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.